Hey everybody, it's Julianne from Cary Quilting Company in Cary, North Carolina. Today is Thursday, December 28th, and today I have three really interesting questions, all centering around quilt value and what to do with old quilts and how to label quilts and making sure that the next people in the world appreciate our quilts. So the first question I have is from Connie Miller. She says, what do you look for to appraise a quilt for its worth? And are there certain things that I could do to make my quilts more valuable? And for full disclosure, I am a professional appraiser. I am not a certified appraiser. There's only 71 certified appraisers in the United States. And the certification for North Carolina, there's only one, and she's in Asheville. The certification process includes a 3-day course, and then you do an optional quilt history course and lots of appraisal experience. And then you go through a test where the panel throws quilts in front of you and you have to tell them everything with no Google, no internet, no research, no books, no resources. So you have to have a very good knowledge of the kinds of quilts that were made at certain times, the kinds of fabrics that were available at certain times. And then appraising is also for new quilt construction. So you also have to have a good knowledge of what makes a quilt valuable that is new versus what makes a quilt valuable that is old. And of course, those are different things, but the things that are in common with both of those questions is quality, the quality of the materials and the quality of the craftsmanship. So, or the craftswomanship, depending on who's making it. So really always condition, quality, and materials are going to be three biggies for appraisal value. Let's see, what else have I got here? If you have old quilts, the condition is a huge variable on whether it is going to be worth something or not. If it has holes or degradation or tears or stains, that immediately devalues the quilt. So really old quilts, I would say 1940s and earlier, need to be in excellent condition to hold their value. And that usually only happens if it's been tucked away somewhere in a really nice container that hasn't put stains on it and things like that for that period of time. And if for new quilts, if the maker of the quilt has won awards or has recognition some other way, maybe they're an author, that actually helps to add value. And the one thing you never want to do with an old quilt is do any kind of restoration or repair, because anything you do to an original piece immediately devalues it. So maybe you think that you are adding value by fixing that one square that has a little hole in it, but actually in reality you are not. So there's a little bit of information on appraising for you. And some ways that you can keep your own quilts in better shape is to keep them out of direct sunlight. Don't hang them from hanging lines, because that hanging creates it puts strain on the stitches and strain on the fabric. You want to keep them away from smoke and away from pets, obviously, and try to move them around. And if you do keep them folded, refold them every few years. So maybe you do a half fold and then you do third folds and then maybe you roll it, so you don't get these fold lines that stay within the quilt even when you've opened it up. So that is a little quick primer on appraising. Now, the next question I have is from Cheri Jones. She says, what do you do with a much loved quilt that's falling apart, but you can't bear to part with it? How do you repurpose it? So I have a few examples here. These are examples of framed pieces. And of course, this is one block out of a larger quilt. And I framed this one. And what I like to do when I'm cutting apart a quilt that maybe has some stains or tears in different areas is, after I cut the piece out, I take a little wire brush and fray the edges, because you don't want that cut to look brand new. And then usually a mat is the perfect amount of width to let this kind of float in there on its own. So that's one option. And that also gives you a way to gift to a lot of people, so everybody can have a little piece of a quilt. This is a similar thing. This is actually my great aunt's crazy quilt that was taken apart and then given to a lot of different people in the family. And one of the pieces, I think the piece that my mother has, actually has the silk oval from the inside of a top hat in the quilt, which is really fun. And then this is another option. This is a bear I made out of my daughter's baby clothes, but of course you could use an old quilt to make a bear, which I have done before. This is just a 4-piece bear, and I think it's a butterick pattern. Super simple, so you don't have to patchwork everything. You could just take the panels from an old quilt and use it for the 4 pieces. So that's another option of something you could do with an old quilt that's falling apart, but you don't want to part with it. You can't bear to part with it. And then finally, we have Susanne Carpenter, who asks, as a quilt judge and appraiser, if you're doing a quilt or wall hanging for yourself, what are the things you need to put on your label? And she said, no kids to pass it down to in the future. First, thank you, Susanne, for bringing up labels. Quilt appraisers love labels because it makes our job a whole lot easier to know who made it, where they made it, and when they made it. But also, this is an important piece of quilting. And I know once you get done with that binding and you just want to get it out of your life, a lot of people don't want to put labels on their quilts, or a lot of people don't think the quilts are worth having labels. Everything that you make is worth having a label. So this is an example of a label that's on the back of one of my portrait quilts. I like to put all the information that I think I will need. So this one has the name of the quilt, my name, the town it was made in, and when I completed it. Some shows actually require you to also put your address and phone number on there, which some people may want to do just kind of on the side here that you can then pull off later because that's a lot of information. But regardless of who you think may get your quilt in the future, you do want to have it on just so people know who made it. Now, I do have a friend, this is an interesting idea because this one is just whip stitched down to the edges, but I have a friend who puts her labels on her quilts before she quilts them. So all the quilting lines go through the label, which makes the label obviously a lot harder to remove, which makes it a little more secure for future generations to know who made it, because it is definitely a part of the quilt if you quilt through the label when you're quilting your quilt. So that's what I have for today. Tomorrow we're going to have another round of questions, and then Tuesday we will also have another round of questions. As a reminder, this weekend we are open Saturday 10 to 5. Sunday we're open 1 to 3. That's New Year's Eve. We're going to be open 1 to 3. And then Monday we will be closed. So New Year's Day will be closed, and then we'll be back open on Tuesday the 2nd from 10 to 7, just like we are every Tuesday. I hope you guys have a great afternoon, and we'll see you back here from the shop tomorrow. Bye.